Hello, my name is Sung Kim, advisor of Gangnam Labor Law Firm. Today with Labor Attorney Jung Bong-soo, we will cover the subject regarding the unfair labor practice. There was an incident recently regarding this unfair labor practice. So could you explain in detail about this case, please?
Hello, how are you today? This is Bong-soo Jung, Korean labor attorney. Today I'd like to introduce one case related to the unfair labor practice. So what is unfair labor practice? Also, what is the reason to determine unfair labor practice? Also, the case I have consulted with, so I want to explain the case whether it belongs to the workplace like unfair labor practice or not. The case is like this one. One university, they have a graduation ceremony on certain day in February. Then the graduation day, with two professors who was reinstated from unfair dismissal. So in order to congratulate their successful legal representation, so the labor union posted the placard in front of at the main gate. So it described the A professor, B professor won the case from school's unfair dismissal. So we congratulate their successful case. Then in bottom there is a labor union. Yeah. So it's a professor labor union. Yeah. So it described then that was the graduation day. So the team leader who is in charge of graduation. So those placard after they installed those placard, then after 1 hour she recognized the placard and take out like take down the placard from that bulletin section. So then she put the placard in some guards the waiting room. So this case, the labor union was very angry about university's action that get rid of those placard. So they take legal action. So they claim the elimination of those placard is an act of unfair labor practice. So they issued the company to the labor commission. So now this is in case whether who is right, who is wrong. So for regarding this case, I like to explain what is unfair labor practice, what is what required to become unfair labor practice. Also regarding some getting rid of those placard describing some they won the case against the university authorities unfair dismissal case. So this act that can lead or maybe eliminate those placard. Such an act, whether it belongs to unfair labor practice or not. So I want to explain 3 things. The first one is what is unfair labor practice? So let's see the Labor Union Act, especially Article 81. So it describes what is unfair labor practice. There are 3 rights of labor: the right to independent association, we call collective like a labor union. Also, labor union has the right to negotiate and conclude collective agreement. Also, right to strike, so we call them 3 rights of labor. So, in order to protect 3 rights of labor law, one Article 81 of the Labor Union Act describes what is unfair labor practice. So when employer violate these rules, then they will be subject to the remedy claim. Also, they will be punished they'll be subject to severe criminal punishment because without protecting solid right of labor, union cannot survive. So the articles relate to the unfair labor practice is so important for labor unions' survival. Yeah. So there are 5 examples that Article 81 described. First one is giving unfair treatment to the one, maybe the employee who joined the labor union or established the labor union, or when they participate in the labor union. So when employer treats them unfairly just because of union membership, so it is called unfair treatment. Second is the yellow dog contract, we call it, but it is unfair agreement, collective agreement. So this agreement includes a certain article that when you are promised not join the labor union, so if you join labor union, it is reason for termination is of this contract. So this is we call unfair the contract. Third one is labor union request for collective bargaining, then employer reject their collective bargaining and also negotiate with the union. So that is a third example. And first example is some bribing or some supporting union the financial management. Also they involved in, they engaged in the interference of labor union activities. So they control union with their money and also controlling their operation. So it is interference of their internal management. Also last one is unfair practice to the union members who participate in collective act. Yes, so there are 5 examples, we call them unfair labor practice. Then what is the reason? I mean, how do you understand whether they violate unfair labor practice or not? So company or company's representative, also those who are working for the employer, they are engaged in one of those 5 examples. Then also those comment or those action cause a negative result of union the activities, then it belongs to the unfair labor practice. So okay, now the third one, whether those getting eliminating the placard describing negatively for school's decision, so whether it belongs to unfair labor practice or not. I think that was the graduation day. As the person in charge of those event, he wanted to make some good like environment for graduation, but when the visitors saw those the negative remark about school authorities, they could not have good emotion or image of the school, so which will damage some reputation of the school. So the person in charge of the event, he thought it is his own duty to eliminate those negative the things on the campus. So he decided to eliminate those placards by his own decision. So union side, that is a kind of interference with the union activities. However, the school has their own decision right to manage their placard because they are inside of university, so they have the authority to control that. So when I think of the situation, also that one thing I want to add that, so later, like they still posting some they big placard for the decline or oppose or some blaming the school's decision for unfair labor practice. So they put still those placard decline, like criticizing school's decision. So then company didn't take that down from their the bulletin section. That means company didn't have any intention to discriminate labor unions. So this one act, I don't think it belongs to unfair labor practice, in my opinion.
I see. Yes, you have explained in detail what are the unfair labor practice, and as you have explained, this dispute is not between the management and the labor union, but is an independent person who was in charge of this graduation event. His own personal action, maybe. So I don't think that it can be based on your explanation and the law. It can become the unfair labor practice, but we have to see what the final decision will be. Is that right?
Yes, yeah, I think still it's ongoing cases, so I don't know what is right, what is wrong, right, but what is wrong or what is right. But later, based on the decision from Labor Relations Commission, I'll explain later again for this case, for the result. So, but my opinion, it doesn't belong to unfair labor practice. However, it's my view, a very subjective view. So I want to see the result of this case.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for watching. Okay, bye bye.